Hey bro, let me say this clean before you start romanticizing it. Breakups don't hurt because you lost them. That's the lie you keep telling yourself because it sounds noble. What actually hurts is quieter, and if you miss it, you'll repeat the same pattern with the next person and swear it's different this time. Here's the part nobody warns you about. When the relationship ended, something inside you went unanswered. Not unloved, unanswered. You wake up and your brain reaches for them automatically. Not to talk, not to fix things, just to check if they're still there. And when that check fails, your body reacts like you touched a hot stove. That reaction isn't love. It's interruption. You didn't just lose a person. You lost a mental rhythm, a future you were quietly rehearsing without realizing it. Think about it. You weren't grieving who they were on their worst days. You were grieving the version of yourself that only existed when they were around. That's why it hurts more at night. That's why distractions work for a few hours and then collapse. Because your brain is trying to finish a sentence that suddenly got cut off. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. A big part of the pain comes from the fact that you never asked for clarity when it mattered. You accepted confusion. You normalized mixed signals. You told yourself it's fine because confronting it risked losing them sooner. So when they finally left, there was no clean ending, no psychological closure, just an open loop spinning in your head at full volume. That loop sounds like, what if I said this differently? What if I waited? What if I tried harder? What if I ruined something that could have worked? And your brain hates unfinished loops more than pain itself. Here's the brutal line most people won't admit. You're not missing them. You're missing the meaning you attached to them. They were proof. Proof that you were chosen. Proof that your time wasn't wasted. Proof that the version of you who tried, hoped, waited, wasn't foolish. When they left, that proof vanished. And now you're left negotiating with your own past decisions. That's why advice like move on feels insulting. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because your identity quietly reorganized itself around something that no longer exists. And right now, your mind is doing what it always does under threat. It's scanning backward, trying to recover control. But here's what almost no one tells you. If the breakup hurts this much, it's not because the connection was deep. It's because something inside you was unfinished long before the breakup happened. And until you see that, you'll keep confusing intensity with meaning and attachment with truth. Stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to point out the exact moment most people miss. The moment where the pain actually starts. Here's the moment everyone skips past. Not the breakup conversation, not the fight, not the silence after. The pain actually started before any of that. You just didn't label it yet. It started the first time you felt uneasy but stayed quiet. The first time your intuition nudged you and you overruled it because you didn't want to look difficult. That was the real fracture. Because from that moment on, you weren't relating anymore. You were managing your tone, managing your expectations, managing how much of yourself was too much. And every time you managed instead of spoke, you trained your nervous system to associate closeness with tension. So when the relationship ended, your body didn't just lose safety. It lost a job it had been working overtime to keep. That's why you feel exhausted on top of heartbroken. You weren't resting in that relationship. You were bracing. Look back honestly. There were moments you felt them pulling away long before they left. Replies slow. Affection became inconsistent. Plans became vague. And instead of naming it, you adapted. You became more patient, more understanding, more flexible, not because that's who you are, but because you were afraid that asking for more would expose that you already weren't getting enough. That fear doesn't disappear when they leave. It sharpens. Now your mind replays every moment you stayed quiet, trying to figure out if that silence cost you everything. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Silence didn't cost you the relationship. Silence was the relationship. You bonded through uncertainty. You attached through inconsistency. Your nervous system learned that love comes with anxiety attached. So when it ended, your body didn't just grieve them. It went into withdrawal from the emotional pattern. That's why logic doesn't help. That's why closure conversations rarely work. You're not craving answers. You're craving relief from a pattern that trained you to stay alert. And here's where most people mess up. They try to heal by rewriting the story. They tell themselves it was beautiful, that it was special, that it was rare. But if it was so rare, why did you feel so unsure while you were in it? Why were you always waiting for reassurance instead of feeling it? Pain doesn't mean depth. Sometimes pain just means repetition. And your brain is smart enough to know this, even if you aren't ready to admit it yet. That's why it keeps looping the memories. It's not romanticizing, it's auditing. It's searching for the point where you abandoned yourself and hoping that if it finds it, it can undo the loss. But here's the twist most people miss. You can't go back and say the thing you didn't say then. And that realization is where the pain spikes. Because now the risk is different. It's not the risk of losing them. It's the risk of realizing you stayed longer than you should have. Because leaving would have forced you to. Confront yourself. Sit with that. Here's why your mind won't let go yet. And no, it's not because you still love them. It's because letting go would force you to accept something that hurts your ego more than the breakup itself. If you truly let go, you'd have to admit that you ignored yourself on purpose, that you saw the signs early, that you felt the misalignment in your body before your mind caught up, and instead of acting, you negotiated. You told yourself timing was the issue, stress, distance, circumstances, anything except the truth, which was simple and brutal. They couldn't meet you where you were asking to be met. Your brain doesn't replay memories because it misses them. It replays them because it's trying to rewrite you. It's asking one question over and over. Why did I stay when I already knew? That question is dangerous, because once you answer it honestly, the story changes. The pain stops being about them. It becomes about self-betrayal, and that's harder to swallow than rejection. So your mind keeps them in the frame, keeps the focus outward, because as long as the problem is them, you don't have to look too closely at yourself. That's why imagining them coming back feels relieving, not because you want the relationship, but because it erases the need to face the version of you who tolerated less than you wanted. Here's the line people don't like hearing. If they came back tomorrow and nothing changed, you'd slowly suffocate again, because the wound wasn't caused by the ending. It was caused by shrinking yourself to keep something alive, and your body remembers that, even if your heart doesn't want to. This is where real release starts. Not with forgiveness, not with closure, not with moving on. Release starts when you stop asking, why did they do this to me? And start asking, what did I teach myself to accept? That question hurts. but it gives you your power back. Because once you see the pattern, the attachment loses its grip. Not all at once, but steadily. You stop romanticizing the highs. You stop defending the confusion. You stop confusing anxiety with connection. And one day, without ceremony, you realize something shifted. You still remember them, but your body is calm. No urge to check. No tightness in the chest. No mental rehearsals. Not because time healed you, but because you finally told yourself the truth you avoided when it mattered. And here's the unfinished part I want to leave you with. The next time you feel that early discomfort, that quiet sense of misalignment, that instinct to manage instead of speak, that moment is the real test. Not whether they'll stay, but whether you will, because the pain you're feeling now isn't punishment, it's memory, and it's trying to teach you something before you repeat it with a different face.